Coach, thanks for being here.
It's going great. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I mean, with you, with the season just like a couple weeks away, are you like where you're just itching to go to like we are, or do you just look forward to more time to prepare?
All right. Year one, I'm looking for more time to prepare. But usually I would say that I'm itching to go. But right now, practice is what we need the most of.
Whenever you go into a new place, and again, congrats on the success and getting that job. But how much language are you actually changing? And is it a slow change, or do you go in with a full, the playbook's new and everyone has to learn all of your terminology now?
Yeah, everything is brand new. Every word, our offense is all our playbook that we had at Arizona. Most of it's similar to what we did at the Rams. And then really probably before that even. And then defensively, it's all brand new. So these kids have had to learn everything brand new. We haven't carried over one thing.
Are there some kids who are light years ahead athletically, even just straight football wise, but can't quite get the concepts? And so you kind of have to handle all personalities different at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a couple things, right? We were able to. We had a couple guys that came over from Arizona, so they kind of knew a lot of the stuff that we wanted to get accomplished, and they knew the verbiage. But for the most part, um, everybody's kind of new, and there's certain guys that pick things up faster. There's certain guys that just know things a little bit better, and it's kind of unique like that. The better athletes are also usually the ones that are the quicker learners when it comes to offense and defensive football. So it's been fun to see how quickly some of these guys have figured it out. I'd say this: it's a very smart team. This team knows what they're doing. This team is, even though they've come from all different areas and backgrounds, they're picking up the scheme really well. Now we just got to figure out a way to execute it at the level we want to.
Do you think it's advantageous being a first year coach that you have in helmet communication? Like those two together are going to help more because you are a first year coach than maybe if it were a different time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just advantageous to begin with. It's an easier way to call a game. When I was in Jacksonville 11 years ago, we were calling the game through a coach, helmet communicator, and ever since then, depending on where we were at, pro or college, you always wish you had it when you were in college football, and to have it back is great. And then I do think that there's some reminders and tips that you can potentially give to the quarterback or to the Mike linebacker or safety, depending on who's wearing it. That may be just a little bit of a reminder if they don't have the experience that other people have, because this is year one in the offense, year one in the defense, which is very different than, let's call it, some other places where you're year three, or if we were still back at the last place, it would be year four in the same system.
Do you think, with your experience in the NFL, it actually helps with NIL and college football because now, again, there's a financial hierarchy in college, which there also was in the league?
Yeah, I've kind of said this, that we've gotten almost back to the old days where it was everyone had 85 scholarships, and then you had to figure out how you were going to get a player um, other than because of the scholarship. Now, everybody has money. The last 4 years, it was depending on how much money you had, determined how good of a player you could get. Now, with the revenue share going on next year, I think the top 25 programs are going to be able to spend pretty similar amount of money. So now you're going to have to figure out what's the next separator. So we've kind of gotten ourselves back in this weird world where you're going to be back to a facilities discussion. You're going to be back to a kind of player centric focus discussion. You're going to be back to coaches and who's going to develop you the best, because we're all going to be sharing the same revenue here pretty soon, at least the top 30 or 40 teams that can afford it. So that's going to make it awfully interesting, and hopefully the experience we had in the NFL will give us somewhat of an advantage there.
Whenever I was living in Texas and they were like, hey, move your show to Nashville and you're going to do this national show. And so I lived in an apartment for like 2 months, and then I found, like, I had to like study the neighborhoods and like find a house. Whenever you move, they just throw you in an apartment and then do you rent? Like, what's the deal?
It depends. I don't know if you've seen my resume. I've moved a bunch. So depending on the situation in life is kind of determined, have we rented or have we bought? It's certainly based on where we were going and what we were doing. In this case here, I got hired January 15th and was in an Airbnb across the street from campus on a street with all of our players, with not our players, but a bunch of college students for about 4 months, while my wife and kids were finishing out in Tucson, and my kids were going to school. And then we bought a house and moved into our house on June 1st. And I told Amber that on June 21st, we were going to have 100 people over to the house for a recruiting weekend. So pressure was on quick.
Yeah, that would be tough to have. I just know my wife. I were like, hey, I have 10 people coming over. It would not be met warm. So, are you totally moved in? Everything good?
We are totally moved in, but we started a project to make our backyard more player friendly. So we're putting a pickleball court back there, a sport court back there, and it's a little miniature golf deal. And we're trying to make it a place where my players want to come hang out, and our recruits want to come hang out. And our goal is to open our house to our players and become their family. And whether it's our current roster, whether it's our recruits. So we have a pretty significant renovation going on back there, which is really putting me in a great a great place with my wife right now.
Yeah. We just went through a pickleball renovation. That itself took 4 months to do and was just it's just people. My wife would be like, there's people here all the time because there was always something to be done in the backyard.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm about. That started last Monday. So things are going great at the house right now.
A lot of travel just in general, but now you got to travel all the way across the country. And I was just looking at some of you guys' games because, again, it used to be the Pac-12. You got to hydrate, super hydrate now, right? Because if I fly Southwest over 2 hours, I get a headache when I land because I didn't drink enough water. You guys are flying all over the freaking country, Coach. How do you prepare your players on time zones? I mean, is there a playbook yet to that?
Well, it's kind of very NFL-like in that regard because when you're playing, I coached in New England and we were flying across the country to play in LA and San Francisco. We played Arizona. When we were coached in LA, we flew across the country to play the Giants, the Dolphins. So you kind of steal that playbook. And I would say that playbook is one in which you leave 2 days early. You try to get, I guess those scientists call it circadian rhythms, right? You've got to overhydrate before you get on the plane. You've got to enforce, especially young kids, 18 to 22, all right, every 30 minutes, we have to have a bottle of water completed. We have to make sure that when we get off the plane, we get enough moving around. We're flying to Rutgers from Seattle. That's 5 hours and whatever. It's like an 8 hour and 15 minute day, let's call it, with the 3 hour time frame and the 5 hour flight. We're flying to State College. We're flying to Iowa City. We're flying to Indianapolis. All these flights are 4 or 5 hours long, if not even a little bit more going to State College. So we've got to come up with a plan. We think we have a decent plan. I don't know. We haven't played the game yet. But, it also depends what time you kick off. Like if we kicked off at 12 o'clock, that's 9 a.m. our time. I don't know how much football we've played at 9 a.m. other than a training camp. If we kick off at 7:30 at night in Seattle, that's 10:30 at night for some of these East Coast teams. So I think really we're going to have to figure all that out as we go. But we're going to do everything we can to keep these kids hydrated up and not let the circumstances define how we play the game.
See, I need to write that in. Overhydrate before, and then a bottle of water every 30 minutes. Because I get off a plane and I'm like, my head hurts. And my wife's like, you idiot. This happens every time you fly. Why do you not drink more water? Coach, whenever you're in the NFL and you have the resume that you do and you've been around so many NFL players, can you pretty much spot collegiately, physically, who can make it in the league?
Yeah, I think you can. It's one of those challenging things, right? Like you could stand in front of your college football team and you could say, who's playing on Sunday? Who has the dream to play on Sunday? And every person in the room is going to stand up. And then you can kind of say like, all right, who has a realistic, um, who realistically believes they're going to play on Sunday, and they all keep standing. So, you don't want to ruin anyone's dream. You don't want to, kind of tell them, hey, this is probably going to be a 4-year run for you. But you do have an idea of what it takes. You kind of know what their bodies look like in the league. You know what their work ethic looks like. It's very hard to just change that over a course of time. So we spend a lot of time talking about what these guys look like. It's like I show them all the time pictures of NFL players. And hey, this is what a safety in the league looks like. Do you look like this? Do you look like this when you're working out? Do you look like this when you're running? Do you look like this in the weight room? Is this you, or is this what you want to be? And if it's not you, are you willing to commit to trying to get your body to look like that? We do that with every position group constantly. And it's not trying to make people not feel good about themselves, but more it's about trying to get these kids to understand, like, let's have a realistic goal and let's embrace college football. I don't think there's a better sport in America than college football. But if all you're doing is you're just waiting for the next opportunity and you're not appreciating the moment, then you're missing out on such great opportunity here. So we try to encourage them to say like, hey, yeah, you might end up being an NFL player and we're going to try to do everything we can to help you there. But like, let's love the fact that, there's 75,000 people watching 11 people play. And if it was easy, there'd be 11 people watching 75,000 people play.
Dang, I should look at more ripped up dudes then. That's what I need to just see pictures of things I need to be. Coach.
Inspiration.
Yes.
Inspiration. It hasn't worked for me, by the way.
Okay.
I'm just saying for the players, it could work.
With your story about how you came up in coaching and, you were someone who knew you wanted to be around great leaders so you could learn leadership. I'm inserting words. When I read your stories about you and Spurrier and the coaches that you worked under, do you look for that with people that want to work for you now where maybe they don't have quite the resume, but that you see something in them that is extra special?
Yeah, I think that for us, we want to have people that aspire to succeed and grow in the profession. I love people that have been around great coaches, great players that are inspired to do certain things. I mean, we have Pete Carroll's son on our staff, Bill Belichick's son on our staff, our two coordinators. We have John Lynch's son on our staff as our defensive graduate assistant. We have Jack Del Rio's son on our staff as our offensive quality control coach, assistant running back coach. I do that because those guys know what it took. Their dads were moving around as kids. They were a part of all different staffs. They heard the stories from their dads when they got home from work. So they know, what that felt like and looked like. They know what when their dads were talking about good coaches or bad coaches and what that meant. And then we've got some other coaches on our staff that either played in the league or aspired to play in the league. And I want those guys to really be around that group and be able to not just be around Brennan and Steve, but also be around Pete and Bill. And we invite those guys to our building. Coach Belichick's been here all week. Coach Del Rio's coming tomorrow. I think he'll be here for a week. Coach Carroll's been around practice a bunch because I want our assistant coaches to be able to grab those guys and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think we should do here? Or how do I grow in this profession? But in the end, I think you just got to work, every day like somebody's working 24 hours a day to take your job.
I feel like Coach Belichick has shown me a new side of him where he's actually pretty funny. I've been watching him on TV a lot where, you get the presser, he would say nothing, and that was just the expectation. But like if you're having dinner with him, is he just like cuttingly funny at times?
Yeah. He's got a great personality. And I think that the way he's handled the media over the years is probably based on 30 something years of how it went, right? Like, I don't know what it was like in 1994 in the media, right? And I think all these years have gone on that he created a persona and he also created a messaging that he wanted to give, which really was what we do in-house is in-house. And it's really not that important for the others to know what we're doing in-house. That was maybe the way he handled it. But when you're with them privately or when you're with them in a different type of setting, we really enjoy him. My wife and I have spent many of times out for dinner and vacation, and you certainly learn so much about the guy. And he's brilliant. He's brilliant outside of football. He's so well read and well versed, but he's also funny and really a good dude to just hang out with.
Is it crazy to you that you'll just be hanging out with these dudes that at one point you looked at as like mentor? Like you just mentioned like 3 or 4 guys, and it's like they could be at your house. You got Pete Carroll, Belichick, and you're like, man, they also think I'm cool now. Like, isn't that like freaking awesome?
Well, it's cool. I mean, let me just say this: I've never called any of them by their first name, so they're still my mentors. I have a really hard time not calling them coach. And when you're around Coach Carroll or Coach Belichick, like I don't think I just look at them in a way that I see them as somebody that I've looked up to my whole career. And now to be around them is pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. It's cool to be running the practice. But I've always said, like, when those guys are at practice, man, I'm the assistant head coach. I still look at those guys as the head coach, whether they're just sitting in the stands or watching the game, or whether they're standing on the practice field talking to me or one of our coaches. In the end, those guys are revered, and they've done some things in football that we all just aspire to do.
Is it bad form to show up to Coach Belichick and say, will you sign this football coach? Like, would that be weird to just have them autograph stuff? Or
hey, can we take a quick selfie?
Yeah, like I feel like I would want to do that all the time. I would want all the coaches that came in, like that are helping right now, I would want them all to sign a ball. So my move is, Coach, if there's somebody that I'm with and I'm like a massive fan of, I'll have somebody come up and be like, oh, you two should get a picture together. That way I didn't ask. So you could have someone on your staff be like, hey, we're presenting Coach Fisch with his ball. All the assistants that came in, it's like Coach Carroll, Coach Belichick, all on one ball, but secretly you wanted it. And you can have that tip for free, Coach.
That's a good tip. I like that idea.
And then you don't have to
ask. You
ask.
must get it all the time. People are always trying to take pictures with you.
It happens a little bit, but sometimes also people are like confused as to why other people are taking pictures with me. So like someone will take a picture and then someone else will walk up and be like, hey, who are you? And then when you have to explain, it's like they don't care because I'm not famous to them, you know?
No question.
Can you go to the grocery store without people being like, Coach Fisch, you're our savior?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Every now and then we'll get how we doing, Coach? Go Dogs. But there's a lot of things happening in Seattle. So they are Husky fans, though, through and through, and we have a great fan base. We have a group. I would say that the fans here are just they've showed out to everything we've asked them to do. We know we're going to sell out our games. We know that the sailgating on the water is going to be incredible. I've heard that you've made it out to the West Coast a couple of times, and I was kind of thinking you'd check out Seattle and be on the water, and we'd get on a boat and do this thing. But maybe next year we can get you out here and you could see it.
Well, Coach, full transparency, all that is true. But we did not come. We did not get invited in time. We went out to another school, which we won't mention.
Not important.
Not important. Yeah. Not important at all.
Not important.
To a couple other schools. We went to your old school as well, and they still speak of you extremely lovingly. They're not even that mad at you.
Really?
I promise you. I'm telling. We spent a lot of time there. Even ex-players do not speak ill of Coach Fisch. I'm telling. I would just not say anything at all. But you are still
that's great to hear. Well, I love those kids, and the head coach that got Coach Brennan's a great coach and a good friend. So I'm excited for them. I'm excited to root them on. But obviously, the players over there that we recruited and we brought in there, I can't wait to watch them succeed. They are fantastic kids and really a special batch out there in Tucson.
Final 3 questions, but I'll say this: next season we're coming out.
I love it.
A+, we're gonna come. Okay, Eddie, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach. I have 4 boys, and they all play sports, and I tell them, your body language is important. You have bad body language. Coach is not going to think you're serious. Doesn't look like you're listening. Is that important to you? Is body language, bad body language, all of that? Is that important to you as a coach?
Fantastic coaching tip. I would absolutely tell my kids. I tell my own kids that. Body language is, I would say, the most important thing when you're talking to a player. How they respond, you could feel it. You could see it if they get disappointed or their shoulders shrugged. Like walk confidently. Like I always tell them, you want to walk on the field and you want to tip the field. You want it to look like this when you're walking downhill all the time. So body language is critical. Great parenting right there.
Thank you, Coach. That's what I want to hear. It's awesome.
As a coach, do you still get nervous?
Yeah. Yeah. I get nervous. Or talk about game day?
Yeah, like for a game. I mean, I don't know I don't know what else you're up to, but for games, like that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I get nervous about, are we gonna have enough NIL money? I get nervous about a lot of things, but without a question, on game day, there's nothing more exhilarating. But yeah, I mean, I have this like, I still have to call the offensive plays, and I always go into this panic attack. Like, what if I just like freeze and can't think of a play? So yeah, I work very hard, and we work as a staff very hard to be as prepared as you could possibly be. But yeah, I mean, I get nervous, and I try to do the best I can to alleviate the anxiety for our players. But I do take it on myself.
This isn't the final question, but something you just said about NIL money. So I have a friend who's a head football coach somewhere. I won't implement him into this, but he says he spent more time on the phone ever. He's just talking to people about money, like more than he ever thought he would. He is a head coach of a major program, and he's like, it's what I do. I dedicate a lot of time to it. Very similarly, I was asked about running for the governor of Arkansas, where I'm from back in the day, and they were like, you're on the phone all the time begging for money. That's really what it is. It feels like, at least until there are some changes, that it's a lot of politicking for cash right now to keep up. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, and I'd also say, I mean, it's kind of frustrating in a manner that I could imagine for others, that you feel like every conversation you have, it's always you're talking to people, you're trying to get them to build a relationship with you. You just moved to a new community, and then it traditionally always skews off and saying, now, if you can help our program, we would really appreciate it. Or, any help will make a huge difference in the success of our program. And but it's every day. It's every day. It's all day. It's every opportunity to send an email, to send a note, to get on the phone. Every break that I have is really dedicated to fundraising. And it's fundraising for NIL. It's fundraising for our facility. It's fundraising for our program. I think that's just the nature of being a college football head coach right now. And hopefully at some point it'll maybe recalibrate. But right now, yeah, I would agree with your friend who's a coach that a lot of our time is spent trying to fundraise.
All right, final question. Your Mount Rushmore of your favorite musical artists of all time. I need all four of them all time, Coach.
Garth Brooks.
Strong.
Billy Joel. Bon Jovi. I'm from New Jersey. Does that count? Yeah. I would say Kenny Chesney.
Wow, from New Jersey with two country guys.
My wife's from Texas. My wife.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, well, then that makes sense. Hey, Coach, we really appreciate the time, and we're rooting for you guys. And we're on a boat. Not only are we coming next year, you promised a boat. We don't care what body of water it is, but we're going to be on a boat, and we're going to come up and spend some time there. Thank you for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, Bobby. Take care, man.
Thanks, Coach.